What's your assessment of this latest round of airstrikes?
Look, it's more of the same. We've seen a number of these strikes, and what we see in response from the Houthi side is that this is giving them the exact boost to their legitimacy that they so sorely needed. This is a group that has been on the back foot domestically for some time and looking for a way to say to their population that they're fulfilling the things that they said that they were going to fulfill. Now, one of those things is to fight against the United States and Israel, and this gives them the opportunity to say that.
So, in terms of that legitimacy, is the very fact of the fact that they're having airstrikes against them doing them good? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. This could not have come at a better time for the Houthis. Just a couple of weeks, slightly more, before the Hamas attack on October 7th, the Houthis were facing unprecedented demonstrations against them within the major cities that they control over. And this is because Yemenis are they're sick to death of the form of governance that they enact. They are very brutal and they're very exclusionary. And so they were facing these large protests and they were really concerned about it. And then shortly after this, they see a golden opportunity in being able to say to their population, look, we're fighting. This is not about you. This is not about us. This is about protecting the Palestinian people. And in that, they tap into very widespread and very legitimate grievances across the Middle East. So they're not only signaling this to the Yemeni population, but also to the Middle East more broadly.
And as well as legitimising them, a couple of weeks ago, before the latest waves of airstrikes, it must be noted, you wrote that airstrikes could have the effect of emboldening the Houthis. What did you mean?
Well, precisely what we're seeing. They're going out onto the streets. They're raising large protests in their favour, and this is a group that didn't have much else up their sleeve other than to be able to say that we're fighting a war of liberation for the Palestinian people. And so this is giving them exactly what they wanted. They can actually say that for the first time with some modicum of legitimacy. So they're going to take advantage of this in every way that they possibly can.
We've heard the Prime Minister, Professor, this morning really backing in the actions of the US. What's your assessment of Prime Minister Albanese's response and the Australian government's response more broadly?
Well, again, we need to look at effectiveness. Now, for the moment, it may be debatably justifiable to say that this is a proportional response. But are they effective? Are they doing anything to deter the Houthis from what they're doing? And the answer is a resounding no on that, because they need to be able to say that they have an external enemy in order to continue what they're doing within Yemen. Now, keep in mind that what they are now able to do is they've gone on a massive recruiting spree. And when I say they go on recruiting spree, it's usually it's often of underage boys. So people in Yemen are terrified that their kids are going to be recruited by this organization to go and fight in Madib, which holds the country's largest oil reserves and which the Houthis need to gain control over in order to consolidate themselves as a notionally viable political entity going forward. So this is giving the Houthis what they need.
So it sounds like your view is that the airstrikes don't offer the kind of deterrent to the Houthis that is required. So what is the deterrent that you think would have an impact on them and actually destabilise their movement and their power structures?
Well, if we're looking big picture, this is a huge issue across the Middle East and the global South more broadly. And the Houthis have got the West and its allies in a really classic wedge, if you like, because they know that the US and the UK aren't going to call their bluff by getting dramatically more assertive with Israel. So the Houthis can keep doing what they're doing and say that it's all about the Palestinians. And of course, some of it is about the Palestinians, but a lot of it isn't. So in order to take the wind out of their sails, the Western allies would need to do something to show that they are dealing with Israel a lot more assertively. Of course, either way, the Houthis win then, because then they can claim that they've successfully changed decades of Western foreign policy, which of course is unlikely in the extreme. or they can continue to have the war that they need in order to tamp down on infighting within their own ranks and internal dissent about their horrendous mode of governance.
Do these airstrikes have a broader impact on that region of the world and the broader conflicts that we're seeing now as well?
Of course, yeah, they're feeding into the wider regional conflict. But what they're also doing is they are showing a region that feels absolutely betrayed and furious at the level of hypocrisy that the Western governments have dealt with the Israeli war on Gaza. And they feel that when Palestinians are killed, it is not taken nearly as seriously as when others are killed. And so what this does is it taps into that very long-standing grievance. What it also does is it taps into a really long-standing grievance that the US and its allies work to support authoritarian regimes across the region in the name of trying to uphold this fairly shaky and tenuous stability. And what we see is that the regimes across the region can't do that. They won't, and this is a symbol of this to people across the region.